Hey guys, I'm Aleister,
And I'm Alseia.
and this is the Absurdium podcast.
Welcome. This is our second episode. Are we excited?
Very excited.
I'm thrilled.
Today we have a very, very different topic from last time. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence.
I have no idea.
And I admittedly have less of an idea than I probably should, but here we are.
I mean, I have basic idea about it. Just nothing in depth.
Right. What do you know about
It exists.
it?
Well, I know about ChatGPT and I suppose it comes down to what is the definition of artificial intelligence and what exactly is meant
Right.
behind the term.
Fair enough.
Meaning behind the term.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of research I did on it, so I can pull up the actual definition real quick here and we can go over it and then...
You certainly should.
Yeah, you'd think, right?
Yeah.
So this is an article from IBM, so I don't think there is really a de facto definition of artificial intelligence.
I suppose it's a very new idea. In, relatively speaking, in historical terms, artificial intelligence is like, what, a couple of decades old at most?
Yeah. It's interesting. From the reading I did, the concept of a machine intelligence is actually much older than that, like much, much older.
Well, what is the machine?
It's basically having
intelligence?
some sort of non-human automaton that can complete tasks that humans would.
Well, the first calculator was invented centuries and centuries back.
Right.
So would that count as machine intelligence, or are we talking about computing?
Not necessarily computing, but it's more so the type of tasks it can achieve. Like a calculator isn't really intelligent.
Would you say what's the word? You know the machine that makes fabric or patterns? I think that was invented in 1800s.
We're talking like a loom, like an automated loom?
Loom. Yep. Well, yeah, it was pretty automated. You just had to replace the patterns in it to what you needed, and it will produce it. Would that be considered as machine intelligence?
It might.
What do you mean by it? What does the research says?
So it's less research and more like myth and legend. But there's a lot of talk in myth and legend, like the Egyptians and whatnot, having some sort of automatons, like stone structures. Obviously, I don't think they actually existed, but they had the concept of having some sort of non-human entity that can complete tasks for them.
Oh.
Like assisting them with, I don't know, housekeeping, moving heavy objects, that kind of thing.
Well, that would explain the pyramids.
Right, yeah.
Clearly that's a major mystery, because I remember reading in an article that they tried to recreate building of the pyramids in the ancient ways, carrying it through the desert, the whole big rocks and blocks, and it was really difficult, and they weren't able to do it even with the number of people and even with the machines that they had already, like the cars, and they cheated a little bit, which can really fault them. So there was definitely some kind of mysticism about how that was built. And
I think I remember seeing Mythbusters tried to also replicate that with rolling things on logs up hills and stuff like that, and it's they could technically do it, but if you do the math on how long it took them, the time frames don't add up. So.
Yeah, I'm sure people who did test it did it in small quantities and the smaller structures, but we're talking about pyramids. And also, it's not just building a pyramid, it's also building the catacombs, which means the underground tunnels, the empty spaces that probably required carving. And then let's talk about a whole artistic point of it. They needed to make sure that it was beautiful because it was built for pharaohs, for dead pharaohs, and it needed to be beautiful, so the path to the underworld and to the afterlife was successful. I don't know. I actually don't know much about legends, but
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian specifically, or maybe.
Right.
But that's what I remember, that they usually did a lot of, well, in many cultures, Chinese cultures and other cultures, they would try to do the best thing, what they
Mm-hmm.
thought would help that passed away
Right.
people to
Yeah, they had a lot of respect for
move
the dead.
better.
They wanted to make sure they got through as easily as possible.
What bothers me in that is that they would also bury other living beings alive with them.
Yeah, that
Like,
was.
like wives, concubines, animals, horses, basically like live or dead.
Right.
I mean, whichever preference they had.
Yeah, they did a lot of things right, but they also did a couple of things that were a little.
A little sketchy. Like, I don't think I would want to be buried alive.
Yeah.
Or killed, for that matter, just to be buried next
Yeah.
to my deceased whoever,
Mhm.
husband or pharaoh that I served.
Right.
Does that count as serving? I suppose.
Yeah, like I'm good. I think at that point, like.
Well, why would you bother? Why would you worry? You're clearly would be, if we're talking about you being buried, you're probably the pharaoh.
I mean, I could be a servant. You never know.
I think they would have preference over female servants.
I suppose.
I mean, unless they swing the other way.
Fair. Which I guess I'm not entirely certain how common that was back then either.
I don't
So-
think it was announced.
No. I suppose.
Why would that be?
Right. It could have been as normal as like anything else. Who knows?
Or it would be not talked about
Right.
like everywhere else back in the days. So I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
know. We're speculating on things that have
We have very
no
little
real
info.
need to be speculated on.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a topic that, I mean, it's definitely interesting what and how ancient rulers lived and what they breathed and did and like what bothered them in different ways. But in reality, it's unnecessary dwelling, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not really exactly on topic for what we're going for here either. To
We
be fair,
already
so,
discussed that. We're just
yeah.
gonna go off topic whenever,
That
which is
is-
actually like some ancient tea, isn't it? Like ancient
Yeah.
gossip. It would be so interesting to learn. Remember we talked about, did we talk about that? If you could go anytime back at any time, did we talk about that?
And like,
And just experience. Let's say you know the language, you're safe, and you're able to go back.
right.
So you can visit for like as long as you want, but
Mhm.
and you're safe and you're like, in the most favorable position you could be. Where in time would you go? I definitely said like ancient Egypt,
Right.
and like any ancient civilization, like maybe China and Egypt and maybe Europe, like during
yeah.
not necessarily ancient, but even medieval
hundred
times
years
would
ago,
be
yeah.
interesting.
I feel like we talked about something like this. It was maybe framed a little differently.
Probably.
I think it was like if you could pick 3 people from history to have dinner.
Oh well,
with
it's
or
totally
something.
different.
Yeah, but it's different but similar. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it be interesting to see live how like the pharaohs and the imperial family lived and like how the pyramids were built?
Yeah.
What kind of machine intelligence was used, if
Yeah.
any?
I would also have to pick Egypt. Like-
Maybe
like-
they had magic. We don't know.
I mean,
Maybe
there's-
magic went extinct because I don't know. There's not enough magical powers anymore.
Mm-hmm. There's also plenty of hieroglyphs with things that look oddly like UFOs on them.
Yeah, we can speculate on that
Mm-hmm.
as much as we wanted. We
Yeah.
will not get close to the truth.
Yeah.
Well, known truth. Like we might be really correct,
Mm-hmm.
but we have no way of actually knowing.
Right, exactly.
But so,
But
what
as
about
Fox
the?
Mulder once said, I want to believe.
I mean, I feel like we already had this discussion. If you believe one unknown thing, you probably believe or can justify believing in pretty much anything else. It's
True.
not a bad thing and it's not a good thing. It's just like a matter of belief.
Mhm.
If you believe like UFOs exist, you probably believe that maybe there are parallel universes
Right?
or
Yeah.
different like races, maybe, or creatures living in other planets. Because like, why not?
Mhm.
We don't know.
Yeah. It's all strange science.
I mean, if we're thinking about the never-ending universe, an all-expanding universe, it would be kind of lonely and weird to believe that we're literally the only living, thinking beings.
Yeah.
Thinking specifically, I don't. There's an interesting discussion because I know it was for the longest time it was very difficult for scientists to define what a human is.
Right. Yeah, it took us a while to really kind of get that on paper.
Yeah, because I know they said, well, anything that walks upright, which can now, is the cat suddenly starts walking upright,
Right.
does it count as a human now? Probably not. Is a kangaroo?
Seen plenty of videos on Reddit of cats walking on their hind legs.
I mean, dogs, cats, kangaroos, they clearly walk upright.
Right.
Or, well, not walk, but jump, but still upright.
Yeah, they have a temper like a human too.
Yeah. Are we talking about, I suppose anything that thinks. And to the capacity that human. I mean, again, I actually don't know the definition of what human is.
Right, but I think sentience is the preferred kind of barometer to test that with, less than like how you look, what you're made up of.
Yeah, because feelings, I think, can attribute that anything living has. To I mean, it's kind of to some degree. Certainly cats and dogs. But sentience and thinking is only a quality of a human.
Right.
As far as we know.
So far.
We're not completely, discounting the idea that...
Hey, for all we know, your printer might have feelings.
Gross, no. Certainly not. Printers are evil. Well, you know what? Maybe. Printers are evil. They are disgusting. I mean, they're useful, but like... Have you ever dealt with a printer? How many times did you have a problem with it?
You just want to take it out back, hit it with a sledgehammer.
Which we did.
Well, you did.
Well, I did. I was lucky enough to go to a rec room and actually like baseball bat that thing real hard. It was cathartic. I highly recommend anyone who can go to a rec room. It was the best thing. I've never actually like slammed down and like threw plates and glasses. It was so much fun. Now I understand when people just like break plates on the floor for fun.
You got to get that release.
When they're stressed, they're just like whoosh.
Yep.
It's super fun. Highly recommend. It was so much fun.
I would assume we have something like that in most cities probably at this point.
Well, I think there are multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, multiple places.
Yeah, like every big city should have one, I would think.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure every big city does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can definitely get your anger on poor inanimate objects like printers.
I don't know if I'd call printers poor.
I mean, the reputation they have now, I would consider them pretty unlucky.
It's giving them way too much leeway.
Oh, I think some other people were actually like slamming down an ATM.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know what the people have against ATMs. Is like they give you money. That's great. Your own money, but like, what?
Except for when they don't. I mean, certainly I've never had a problem with them. But
Okay,
I
I was
also
just
don't
like,
use ATMs that much. So.
Okay, between an ATM and a printer is definitely more problematic than ATM. Like, how many times did we run into a problem with a printer that just decided not to work, not to connect, and give you like some weird excuse? I'm like, oh no, like we don't see the connection. The paper is gone, but it's like fully stocked with paper.
Right. Or like PC load letter. What the heck does that mean?
I don't know. Anyways, that was really far off.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still within the machine topic.
Yeah.
Well, since we returned back from the ancient times and ancient civilizations.
All right, let's be honest. Eventually someone's going to put an AI in a printer. Like, it's going to happen.
And it will be an evil AI.
Yeah, that's
just by default. It doesn't matter what kind of AI you put there by default. It will just turn evil and make your life miserable. We should be truly, truly afraid of that.
That's the true origin of Skynet.
There'll be war against printers and humans. We're going to be cut with paper cuts.
Oh my god, death by a
Because they're just going
cuts.
like...
Can you imagine? Just printers on legs, just shooting paper everywhere.
Oh my god. I mean, with enough force, I think it could cut the limb off.
Maybe
Maybe they will learn how to like solidify the paper. Okay, we're going into the realms of total unnecessary thought right now.
I mean, I've heard stories of people being killed by boxes of tissues in their car when they hit a wall at like 100 miles an hour. Like the box is moving so fast, doesn't matter how light it is. It hits them, and it like snaps their neck or something.
Well, it's like the experiments with gravity. If you take out the gravity, a feather and a metal ball are gonna fall with the exact same speed.
Exactly.
Physics.
So, yeah.
Guys, learn physics. It's amazing.
It's fun.
Well, if you don't actually have to study it professionally, unless you really like it.
Yeah, you could like it.
Yeah, I personally don't know much about physics, even though I wanted to study astrophysics, and I even pursued it temporarily until I realized that I'm no genius and I cannot do physics as I thought I could.
I can sympathize with that. Furthest I got with physics was high school physics, and that didn't go well. So, did get to see my teacher fry a hot dog with a couple wires, though.
I would assume that would be like machine architecture class.
Right?
Or like electronics, but not physics.
Well, it was the physics of electricity.
I suppose. I mean, high school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to divide it into like mechanical engineering and like machine architecture and...
Yeah, that would have to be a university thing.
Which I did. I don't know why. I took so many random classes in college. It was amazing.
I mean, that's kind of what you're supposed to do, right? Get a feel for what you want. Well,
if you have money, please. Yeah, but anyways, off topic. Continue.
Yeah, what were we talking about?
Artificial and machine intelligence that was created long before we thought originally.
Yeah, so the concept has existed since the mythological era. More appropriate to modern times, I think it was 1952, I was reading, that Alan Turing was working with machine intelligence. He's kind of the founder of the study of machine intelligence.
What years do you know?
I don't off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure 1952 was correct.
Okay.
But I can pull this open real quick and verify. But yeah, Alan Turing, he's like the forefather of artificial intelligence. He developed the Turing test, which is it's a test to determine if a machine intelligence has become a true artificial intelligence, which I believe the test is just that you have to have like a text conversation with the AI, and if you can't tell it's a robot, it passes the test, basically.
Well, did we discuss what's the definition of artificial intelligence?
I feel like we were getting to that, and then we got sidetracked.
Don't look at me. It was a fascinating conversation.
It was.
Ancient civilizations, burying alive. Come on, what not to love?
Yeah. So I think what started that whole tangent is the idea that there isn't really a true one-size-fits-all definition of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But this quote I found on IBM's artificial intelligence website states that artificial intelligence is something that leverages computers and machines to mimic the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind.
Okay.
So I'd say Turing's test kind of fits that bill still.
Yeah, I mean, if it can have a conversation with you, it's probably good enough. Like ChatGPT.
True.
I mean, I think it's the closest thing you can...
I think Google actually might have just released something new that might beat it.
Really?
But there's not much on it yet. So
how do we know if it can beat it if we don't know much about it? Is it still in testing?
I think so.
Okay.
I wasn't able to find too much on it. But to my knowledge, nothing has ever actually passed the Turing test.
No?
At this time.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, there's a difference between an untrained person not being able to tell it's an AI and someone who knows they're, administering the test. They know things to ask to trip up a machine. So,
I suppose the question is how complex the Turing test's supposed to be.
Right.
Like, are we talking about questions, what's the weather like today? How are you feeling? Or is it more complex concepts?
That I do not actually know. Let's find out.
It's just interesting. Like, if no artificial intelligence or machine could pass a test, it needs to be questions that are complex enough.
Right.
I would think so. I mean,
Yeah, it can't be simple things.
no, it cannot be yes or no. It cannot be like something that is searchable.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree.
Right.
To a degree, it could be, but
it's got to be more like common sense things that you'd feel out, or like things that rely on human intuition.
But that's the thing. Like, what kind of questions? Because I don't think I can come up with something from the top of my head.
Right.
I mean, to a certain degree, you can always find find an appropriate answer online, which what ChatGPT does, and
Right.
sites and applications alike do. They search for an appropriate answer.
Yep.
Someplace in the
Either online or in their memory banks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So even if I ask, for example, explain love to me, they would probably come up with some kind of poem or definition from a book that is stored someplace in the depth of the internet, which is not necessarily the wrong answer, because I feel like every single person defines an emotion and concept differently.
Right.
So you won't even... I mean, I'm sure there's a definition of, like, proper definition for the word love and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But...
kind of goes back to our first episode where definitions are kind of a factor of who someone is.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
a
obviously
personality, not definition.
Right.
So, yeah.
Obviously, there's on-paper definitions for things. But
yeah, but we all know that love is a very, very different feeling to everyone. Like, it's so varied. Like, you clearly love, like, your children, but you don't love your children the same way you love your spouse.
Right. Yeah.
And you love your animals differently than you love your children. I would hope so, in a way.
Yeah.
I hope you love your kids more than animals.
You would hope, yeah.
I mean, I understand that animals are like our children. I have multiple pets and I love them very much. But if I have a child and a pet and one of them needed immediate help, I would probably, most likely, hopefully, help my child first.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, you would think.
I would hope.
If you don't, there's something wrong with you personally.
I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, which I don't think I am, but I would love to hear other opinions on that. Right. I would be very concerned, but it would be interesting to hear a different perspective. Maybe I'm not thinking of something, which is fine, which is fair.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it probably could depend on, like, what's more able to help itself at any given time.
But, yeah, that's an interesting perspective, too.
Yeah, like, if you've got a 17-year-old and a disabled dog, you might help the dog first.
I was more thinking like a toddler.
Yeah.
And like a pet.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm more thinking in terms of, like, both are unable to help themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, if everything else is equal, you help the kid first.
Yeah, well, let's say, obviously, I'm expecting more of ability to survive or help themselves from, like, anyone above 10.
Right.
Even 7, maybe. I don't know. I don't have kids.
Yeah.
Neither of us do, so I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, back on topic to the whole Turing test thing, though.
Yes.
From what I'm finding here, they don't really have a set, like, question set that they use. It's more so they just kind of pick a subject, and they have both the machine and a human respond to questions in the subject at the same time, albeit separate from each other. So the human is obviously the control, and then the machine is the actual subject. And then at the end of a set amount of time, the person doing the questioning will go in and decide whether or not the machine is, or which one is a machine, basically. So the person, the questioner, doesn't know which respondent is the machine.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, well, it isn't kind of biased if you know who is who, but if they just go in blind, that's more fair. Mm-hmm. I mean, so. I feel like if I ever to take that test, I would end like a machine and would not know what to actually say.
Oof.
Well, listen.
Let's hope not.
I haven't been in such a situation. Let's hope I never will to need to test my ability to
Now I kind of want to find an example of Turing test questions and
And
ask
do
you.
it on me? Oh,
Yeah.
I would be actually super curious. Maybe we can do it on stream one time if we ever find it. Or if you guys ever find questions, do submit them to us. It would be interesting to answer them and see if we're machine-like.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. So anyways, based on that test, which I do believe probably has its flaws, I don't know if I want to get that deep into it.
I mean, why
Today.
not? What kind of flaws does it have?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I believe there is an article in here about it. For many years, a computer might only score high if the questioner formulated its queries so they had yes-no answers or pertained to a narrow field of knowledge. So it's basically, it sounds like the limitations is a human limitation. It's the questioner has to be able to formulate the questions properly.
Which is a hard thing, because to ask a question, you need to know half of the answer.
Right.
That's what I always, like for our job, sometimes I have to Google something and I don't even know how to formulate the question because I don't even know what I'm looking for.
Right.
Which was a struggle in some of my classes in college, because it was such a complex class and my professor didn't do much to help in explaining. He was a very smart man, but he was not very gifted in delivering the knowledge that he knew, which obviously hindered our ability to learn. And it was a very interesting subject. If I could, I would have loved to learn more about it. But and it was such a specific subject where there wasn't even much online. So it made it like 100% harder, not knowing what you're looking for, but also not having much of the info online for it as well. So yeah, it was a hard class to pass, but I did it anyways. So
there you
through
go.
some trial and error. Luckily, the entire class just wanted that class to pass. It was miserable. It was really difficult.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I suppose the good thing about hard classes like that is presumably they grade on a curve, right? I would think.
Oh yeah. He did say that if everyone like scored 30%, he would curve the grade and make it like C, and whoever scored higher than, let's say, 35, that would be like considered a B.
Gotcha. Which, like, that's good. Then you can tell if a subject's just like too hard.
Oh yeah,
So.
he curved our grades for sure.
Right on.
It was a really hard class.
Yeah. Huh. Fun. Kind of feel like I missed out on college a little bit. I feel like that would have been a fun experience.
We already had this discussion.
Did we?
Aleister, yes. I listen, if I could, I would consistently go to college just for fun. I love learning. I love going to classes. I don't particularly like homework.
Right.
But if you're just doing for enjoyment purposes only, it doesn't matter if you do your homework or not. I mean, please kids, do your homework, because like if you're actually doing it for a degree, you have to do your homework, because your grade is partially consists of your homework.
Yep.
But what I'm saying and what I mean, if I'm just taking classes for myself and not doing a degree, which what I want to do, homework is of no paramount, because okay, you failed the class.
Right.
For me, it was the experience of the class, of the information learning.
You're just there
process.
for fun.
Yeah, if I fail, well, okay.
Now, technically, I think you can audit classes for like $10. Pretty sure that's a thing you can do.
What do you mean audit?
Like you sit in on the class as if you're a student, but you're not actually a student. You don't get a degree at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but you pay.
Oh my God, I did not know that. I should probably look into it.
Yeah. I don't remember if there's like a limitation on who can do it or not. I don't think there is. But I bet you'd get a kick out of that.
I remember seeing a couple of old gentlemen in my history class.
That's probably what they were doing.
That's probably what they were doing, yeah. They were learning. Is it per class?
I think so.
Okay, so you have to calculate how many classes per semester and how many you want to actually sit on.
I wonder if maybe that is something for people who are like at retirement age, now that I think about it. I don't know. That's worth looking into. Yeah. We're
Or
not
maybe
quite retired yet.
scholars and stuff
Yeah.
who have some kind of interest in it besides a hobby. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know
Hard to
anything
say.
about the subject. But if it is possible, if anyone knows, please let us know. I would be very interested in looking into it.
Yeah, I could definitely see you doing that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love taking classes. But I also like the whole process of actually going to class. I know we can all do Coursera and free classes that are available online. That's not what I like to do.
Yeah, you like the environment.
I like the environment. I'm very big on the atmosphere and the environment. If the environment is not what I want, I cannot do it. It's the same reason why I never work out at home by myself, because I like to bounce my energy off other people. So when I'm working out, I like to see someone doing the same thing. So if they're doing better than me, I can push myself harder, because I'm thinking, well, if they can do it, I certainly can do it too, if I just try harder and hard enough.
Absolutely.
And maybe after some time. I mean, obviously, if I am not in physical shape to do what they're doing, I will wait until I'm in a physical shape. But you know what I mean? It's just like,
I get the same thing.
it's just like you get that inspiration, that energy from seeing someone doing a little better than you, and you're like, well, I'll just push. I'll just do an extra push-up or extra, like, I don't know, whatever exercise you're thinking of.
I get the same thing with like hiking. Like if I go on a hike, I can maybe do 5 miles before I start to get tired and like my feet start to hurt. But if I go out with a group of friends, I can put down 15.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe I'm going to suffer the next day, but
Yeah.
during the actual act of hiking, like I can just keep on going.
Exactly. So for me, classes and things like that are the same way. I like the atmosphere when you're just sitting together, listening to the same thing, doing the same thing. Especially that was very prevalent in my art classes. I know we had homework like to do at home. It was so difficult for me to like make myself do anything at home.
Right.
But I could sit like for 6 hours and like paint when other people around me paint.
Right.
It was just kind of
just the vibe.
just the vibe. Very vibey kind of person. I am. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we both are in a way.
I think I'm more than you are.
Yeah, probably. But I'm certainly a little attuned to it.
Okay. What else do you have in terms of information?
Just more about the limitations here. From what I'm reading here, and also just from common sense, like I would imagine certain AIs probably have like a field of expertise in a way where their algorithms are more like
In tune with specific topic?
yeah, exactly, or like I don't want to say biased per se, but it's like certain things click better. So it's like if the person doing the questioning either accidentally or on purpose gives them a bunch of softball questions in something that they have proven to be good at answering, they could pass the test. But if there's like 10 questions that weren't asked that it would just absolutely flop on, you wouldn't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's, I don't know.
Do you think they accidentally, on purpose, program their AI to be specialized in certain topic?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Like accidentally because they ask very specific questions and not exploring other
Right.
areas?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's
But then wouldn't you think that since it is an artificial intelligence and has access to databases and search browsers and online content, don't you think it is impossible to make it specialized because it still has access to all the other topics?
so that's
Or is it also consist of just finding shortcuts to certain information better because it already been programmed to do that?
So AI being connected to the internet to be able to search databases, like the entirety of the net like that,
Yeah.
that's a pretty new development by my understanding. Like
Okay.
ChatGPT, I think, was the first one to do that,
Okay.
which is why it was so revolutionary. So I guess I don't really know how that actually pertains to this whole Turing test idea. This might honestly actually be outdated at this point now that we've got the power of the internet.
That's what I was thinking about. That's why it was so hard for me to think of a specific question to ask the AI especially ChatGPT, that it would not be able to answer anymore, because it does have access to such a wide variety of topics and sources. And
yeah, it doesn't need to be able to operate and common sense its way out of a problem like a person, because it could just go find someone on Reddit who asked that question 5 years ago.
Yep. And you would not even know that there was a question like that asked.
Yep.
But ChatGPT, or not necessarily ChatGPT, but the artificial intelligence of that kind would be able to search it fast and from any depth of the internet and just pull it up and give it to you, and you would think like, oh my god, such a revolutionary new idea, and it's just been buried under like years of content, internet content.
Right. I think we've seen a decent bit of this coming up too with like back to the whole schooling and university conversation. People have been using ChatGPT to write papers.
Did you know that they use ChatGPT to write books?
I feel like
I've read that when I love books, so I go through Kindle often. And there was a moment where I read a comment. I sometimes read comments just to see like what the general response is. I don't base my reading on the comments because it doesn't matter to me, but I do read if there are any trigger warnings that I might want to be aware of, or the general premise. Maybe there's something like, oh, it was super boring, maybe pass or it's boring in the beginning, push through it, it gets better.
Right.
I do trust those comments because they don't discredit the entire book. They're just telling you like, oh, by the way, like if you find this couple of chapters unexciting, just push through and you'll be okay.
Right.
It's helpful, okay? But there was,
when you read as much as you do, you got to filter through things. So.
I mean, somehow I have to, right? But so yeah, one comment did say that, oh, this author is so amazing. They actually read their books by themselves, and I'm like, what? And then later comment was like, yes, author does not use ChatGPT or things like that. And I was like, people do that? I mean, it makes sense,
right?
But at the same time, I'm like, how fast do they write the books? Because it's pretty new. I mean, what, year, 2 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, okay, maximum 3 years. Until it became super popular. We don't know.
So, like, are they using it as in place of an editor, or are they actually just giving it prompts and letting it go?
Kind of like that. Both, probably. Probably both. When they're run out of ideas, they're like, oh, write me a dialogue between two main characters that are in love, and or like the two characters that are fighting in the battle. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Which blew my mind because like I've never thought that it's such an issue, but I can see that because what machine like that does, it's not only pulling information, but it's also can combine and squish two like multiple different type of languages together. I don't mean foreign languages, I mean the structure of the language, because every author and every person speak differently, not just the tone of voice, but write things differently, thus speaking through the piece of literature in different ways. So, and they might pull something from modern 21st century book and like 18th century Shakespearean interpretation or something and smash it together, and it will feel awkward because you might not notice it immediately, but once you read it in the context of a whole book, you'll be like, what is this? This is kind of like a little bit what's the word? Anachronism? Which is the word?
Anachronistic?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Like, it sounds a little too outdated. Not in a bad way, just not for the book.
Right.
In the style of the book that you're reading. Because I'm sure mostly authors that write modern stories do that. I mean, the authors who write stories in the modern day times. I would think so. Maybe they do in other time periods. I don't know. But it was an interesting thing. And I was like, I don't know if I like that idea. I would prefer authors to have maybe some inspiration from other works, because I don't think there is truly original idea.
Right.
Nowadays, it's hard to come up with something like truly original. Someone, someplace, somehow got an inspiration from someplace, and that's not a bad thing. Until you're literally copying the pieces of work, that's called plagiarism. Do not do that.
Yep.
But if they're just writing their own take on the subject matter and the idea, I don't think that's a bad thing. But still writing it in their own way, in their own style. That's what's beautiful. That's why we like different authors more than we like the other.
Right.
It might be the same subject, but it's just written differently. Thus, it speaks to us better than the other story.
Yep.
Like how many renditions there are for like Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast.
Or even just generic spy novels.
Whatever. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. The idea is pretty much the same, right?
Yeah.
Someone spying someplace and against some other country, and they get into adventures, and they're pretty much all around the same. But how it's written,
it's
the difference.
Factor.
And it doesn't mean that we all have to like the same authors. That's not what I mean. But one author is going to speak more to than the other. Whether it's good or bad or not.
Right.
By different people's perception.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a very long tangent to go around one subject matter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's keep going with it. If you were reading a book, or if you found a book and it was deliberately told to you that an AI wrote the whole thing, would you read it?
I think out of curiosity purposes. Don't you have a book that's written by AI?
That's just like joke.
Yeah, but it was still very interesting and entertaining to read, because like how absolutely ridiculous it was.
Right, yeah.
Like especially piece of the... I haven't read the entire book, but I did read like a couple of interesting subjects. Like there was one that AI attempted to write erotica. It was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if you got to that point. But I wanted to read it because I was like, oh my God, how is it gonna portray that side of, relationship? And it was absolutely hilarious. You could not even take it seriously. It was bad. It was really, really bad. In like a really funny way.
Right, yeah. And it also, like, they had to try to do, like, screenplay adaptions of popular TV shows and whatnot. And it's just...
It's so bad.
It's terrible. The grammar
but entertaining.
Sucks, but it's just the best. It's so funny.
Entertaining. But yes, if there was a book fully written, let's say an actual pretense for on a novel, right? Like it's a novel, revolutionary thing written by AI. It's just like any other book. If that was the main selling point, I would probably give it a try and see how it is. I don't know if I would like it, and I don't know how far I would get in the book. I'm the type of person that has no problem dropping a book like 75% through.
Right.
If I find that I don't find enjoyment in it, I'll drop it. It doesn't matter how many pages I read. 3 or 300 or 200. I don't know how long of a book we're talking about. But my books are usually more than 300 pages.
I guess let's change the framing of the question a little, because that's not quite where I wanted to go with that. So say you read the book and you absolutely enjoyed it. It was actually what you wanted from a book, and it was a great time and you liked it.
Okay.
Would you be okay with it if it was written by an AI?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't care.
Yeah?
If I enjoyed the content and I found it entertaining and I have no qualms with it, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me who wrote it, as long as it's a good read.
And so long as it's not plagiarizing a bunch of other works.
Yeah. Right, which is probably the thing that I would be concerned about, because I would not know if it was plagiarized, but I would not want it to be plagiarized, because I want to respect other authors' authenticity and their actual time and energy spent writing that.
Absolutely.
It would kind of be very sad and heartbreaking if that was. And I don't know how capable in that sense would AI be in rewriting it instead of just copying it.
Right. That's actually a big debate that's been going on these last couple of years. So that was something I wanted to touch on a little more here too. It's more pronounced in like the visual art community.
Oh, I
But
can see that.
there's been a lot of generative AI. Like we actually worked with it when we were designing our logo for the podcast. Photoshop has a generative AI built into it now. You can just feed it a prompt and it will just generate images for you.
Which is so entertaining. I could spend like hours just
Oh yeah. It's fun.
throwing ideas out there.
Yeah, and it's like it can be super basic, or you can write it a book and tell it what you want and it'll give you something very specific. So
Which is actually hard to do.
Oh yeah.
By the way, if you ever try it, it's pretty complicated to write something so specific.
Yeah, it's tangent of a tangent here, but it's been commonly talked about in like the business sector that we're going to start seeing new like job openings and stuff where it's basically people that are just they're trained or they know how to interface with these language models and get what you need from them.
I feel like legal workers would be really good at that because they already know how to formulate and phrase very complex things. So I feel like they would, or linguists, linguist, legal, paralegal, or all those kind of people who deal with language would be very good at that kind of job because they would know how to properly structure things and how to include things, especially legal. Like, come on. Writing contracts is probably super hard because you have to make sure that there is no loopholes to go through. I'm assuming that writing a good prompt for generate AI that generates things would be the same way.
You would think so. I would think IT guys would be good at that too.
I don't think so.
No. The amount of like weird stuff you have to put into Google to find your little niche issue, like that's a skill.
But then finding little like very specific things doesn't mean that they would be good at writing prompts.
No.
Huh. Unless you're writing that very specific niche, but I think for that kind of job description, you would need to be very good at putting prompts of any kind.
I
not
suppose.
very niche specific small things.
Right.
Also, what IT Google, I would presume, would be very specific question-like things instead of not
IT guys
prompt-worthy.
Would probably be good at prompting ChatGPT and the like for IT specific things.
Well, yeah, job description requires.
Yeah, but I guess as a generalist, probably not. That's fair. Fair enough.
Also, I don't think IT people have enough creativity for certain things.
Yeah, it depends on
nothing against IT people, okay? But I'm just saying, I feel like tech people have lower creativity level.
I feel like you'd be surprised, but
I highly doubt that.
I don't have any examples.
I highly doubt that. Not yet one single IT person gave me enough creativity.
Fair enough.
To my liking.
Yeah. Anyways, where were we? What were we talking about?
Book.
Well,
if it was written by artificial intelligence, would I read it? And if I like it.
Generative AI. Oh yes. The whole dilemma with generative AI and images.
Yeah.
So there's a big debate that's been going around lately where AI has been generating art. Like true proper art. It's got a couple weird little things it can't really figure out. Like for the longest time it couldn't figure out hands. I think it can finally do hands now.
Oh yeah, I heard that it has hard time doing hands.
Or like sometimes people would have like a leg coming out of some weird position or something. But other than that, like other than these weird little niche issues, it's generating art that's barely distinguishable from something some person drew.
Okay, is it authentic?
That's the debate. So it's training on other people's art.
Okay.
It's not copying other people's art.
Okay.
But it's looking at other people's art, looking at how they do their art, like their brush strokes or like their styles and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's training on that, and then using that to create its own things with the prompts.
Okay, so what is the debate exactly?
The debate is whether or not that training is copying those artists' styles.
No, that is an absurd idea. If you look through art history, which I studied briefly, professionally in college, art college, every artist had a student. Well, not every artist. A lot of artists had students that took upon their art.
Right.
Like in the same brush strokes, ideas. Monet, for example, had a student who painted pictures in a similar manner. The brush strokes were slightly different. That's how you could differentiate and distinguish the two between them.
Right.
Between the two. But
little nuances of technique.
Just little nuances and techniques. And a lot of other artists had the same thing, where even like instrument makers, listen, any creative job, any creative outlet have apprentices, students who learned from the artists themselves, thus acquiring their skill and their way of looking at things, of doing things. So what AI is doing is just basically apprenticing from all the artists in the world and doing what's asked. So as long as they're not copying exactly what is already done, I don't see a problem of it copying the technique, copying in very, very big quotations, because again, I don't think we can create new artistic, we can create new artistic ways to do something. I don't think we can create new ways or styles. I don't know how to put it in a thought, but basically I don't think if you're painting with a brush, I don't think you can really create a new way of painting with a brush.
Right, you can't really innovate.
Yeah,
it's kind of all been done at this point.
Yeah, the same thing with the online and tablet art that now is popular to like draw and do all the artistic expressions through tablets and that way, right?
Right, yeah.
Which is totally fine. I don't think we can innovate new textures to use. Right, but
the process is kind of just,
it's the same process. Like I understand, for example, an actual painting that was done with a brush and whatever paints that was used, primarily oils, because oils are mostly the ones that would stay the longest. I don't know actually about acrylic, but anyways, you can distinguish by the brushstrokes. You can actually like study how different painters and artists express themselves with the brush. It's still the same brushes, right? But you could see like the way maybe their hand moved and how they what's the length of the brush strokes. It's not very innovative, but it's like a signature. It's like your fingerprint.
Right. I know that's common if you're like trying to find fakes and whatnot. I've heard of like museums that can assess for that kind of thing.
But with art that is done on a tablet, you can't really see the brushstrokes.
Right.
You can't really be so distinguished from others unless it's a very specific type of art, which I'm sure someone still can or is able to do the same thing.
Right. But it's harder.
Yeah. So for someone to claim and say that ChatGPT, as long as the machine doesn't actually copy the work, that's what you can't really be like, oh no, they're basing this and they're just copying the style. What style?
Right.
Like, stylistically, yes.
I think that's kind of the basis of the debate.
I just don't see that being like a whole debate in my mind. Like,
I think the problem is that it was people that
made the art?
Didn't understand how the AI works at a fundamental level.
Or how in general, plagiarism in art works.
Like, I think what people thought is that it was going to, like, hundreds of thousands of pictures and just cutting little bits of it out.
Oh.
And then putting it into the picture and making it a thing, which even then it's debatable.
Yeah,
but I can see where the thought comes from.
Okay, as long as the pieces are not recognizable, and if we're talking on like pixeler level, can you really count that as plagiarism? Like, we're all using the same color. The color scheme on the machine is not as deep as it is in real life that you can make. We might not see it with our naked eye, but like, you need to have like very advanced technology to be able to that is able to perceive such nuanced colors. I mean, do you
Right.
really actually even need to see such nuanced colors?
You don't really.
You don't. Like, your
Yeah.
eye range is not even like that
Yeah.
advanced to begin with.
Yeah, but when you think of the physics
average.
behind it, like color is just light bouncing off of objects at a different wavelength
Exactly.
at the end of the day.
Oh, that's
replicating
already chemistry.
Yeah.
Chemistry and physics right there.
Yeah. But like replicating that with
circling back.
yeah, replicating that with a diode on a circuit board that's in your monitor, like
I mean, to me, any sort of plagiarism, whether it's picture or written, is, I mean, whatever outlet we're looking at, is directly copying pieces of it, recognizable pieces
with intent.
with intent.
Yeah.
If we're talking about artificial intelligence, if it was programmed and designed that way to not plagiarize and like rewrite things, it's not gonna plagiarize on anything.
Right.
We cannot hoard the ideas. It's impossible. We're gonna be bouncing off each other anyways.
Right. Yeah.
We cannot patent an idea, okay? It's like we can patent a word,
No.
but not an idea. Well, okay, what?
Disney's patent lawyers are really good.
Okay.
That's the joke, basically.
I don't think they can patent the idea of like Cinderella. There's already so many stories that they cannot patent that.
Yeah.
It's an idea. Again, you can probably patent a specific kind of story, but not the idea of it.
Right.
How many stories can we read about a poor orphaned young girl who is smitten by a rich guy of power? Every single romance novel is probably a similar premise of some sort, because
you can't patent that,
in female psychology, that's what women look for: reliable, respectable. On average, women do not. I'm speaking averages, okay? We're talking about average. On average, in female psychology, it is to seek a person of who you can rely on.
Right.
In whichever way you assume and want. Okay? I'm not going to be specific, but you can rely and feel safe with.
Right. Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's how it kind of goes on average. Again, on average, if you don't think that's what you're looking for, that is fine. It does not apply to you, okay?
Yeah, we're not speaking to each individual person.
Exactly. I'm speaking to collective collective.
Yeah. The royal
average mind, okay?
Yeah.
Don't feel like it's a personal attack on your character, morals, or beliefs.
Yep. So for what it's worth, I agree with your sentiment on AI and the plagiarism debate in art. Unfortunately, depending on who you ask, it seems that the rest of the world has kind of sided the other way.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's much that's been done from like a legal standpoint. You might actually not be able to copyright AI works anymore. If you own the AI, or if you wrote it, I think if I remember correctly, I read something, I didn't dig into this because this is a tangent, but I think you can't copyright art created by an AI.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's tons of communities online going to the more unofficial side of things that ban AI art.
Okay, well, that is a whole different issue. I don't think AI will plagiarize anyone's work, but I kind of agree of not being able to copyright the AI work, because I feel like you can copyright what you personally created.
That's fair.
I think that we can just go from moral standpoint that unless you created it, it's not yours to claim.
Right. Even if you wrote the AI?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But you can claim ownership and copyright the AI itself,
right,
but not the work that it did.
Fair enough.
Because again, if your specialty is programming, and you wrote the program, that is your piece of work. You can copyright and claim it. But whatever that piece of work does, your piece of work, and whatever your piece of work does, it's not technically your ability. You do not know how to write books. I mean, maybe you do, and it's just undiscovered talent, but you don't know about it. So you can't really, like, claim it.
Right.
It's like if you steal art, you can, or let's say you steal an authentic work that is unknown yet, you cannot claim it as yours.
Right.
Intrinsically, okay? You can claim it,
Yeah, you can try.
but you can try, but will it be yours? Will you be able to replicate the same thing?
Right. Yeah, if asked to prove that it's your style.
Yeah.
Or you have the skills.
So like I understand why that. I agree with that, because whatever you did not do yourself is not yours to claim.
That's fair. I can see that standpoint.
I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more speaking about the subject matter that we're talking right now,
Right.
like art and books. I'm sure there's something other than that might be under the discussion. I just cannot think of it right now.
I know Marvel used AI to generate the intro to one of their most recent TV series. And clearly they copyrighted that. So... But that's a different debate than an individual copywriting art they upload to like a website. So
it's like I think in the sense of it being a big company like that, you cannot really discredit the idea that ideas were bounced around.
Right.
Because when a collective group comes together to discuss an idea, if it was AI generated, I'm sure it was still went through like intense scrutiny before it.
Right.
It probably was.
It's a part of a greater thing too.
Yeah, it's kind of. I feel like it's a little different because they're not copywriting for themselves, but for like an actual like whole thing. It's part of. I don't know if it's even like if I'm being hypocritical in this sense or not.
Fair enough.
I just don't think you can personally claim.
Right. If
I think there are exclusions to like film companies or like maybe when it's for the movies or things like that, but I don't know, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it is.
If you think about it,
it's an interesting debate. It's I guess the difference is probably, is it part of a greater thing, or is it like what the AI did is the entirety of the piece?
Yeah, I think if you just take a small part of it, it's basically you're just grabbing the idea. You already read the idea. You can like modify it as much as you want, and that's already changed. That's already not the actual, the specific exact idea that AI came up with. I mean, it's like Cinderella's story. Here's the story. Do you actually plagiarize in it if you're changing basically everything except the two characters, an orphaned poor girl and like a rich man that is a prince?
Right.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Again, you cannot patent or claim an idea. Idea is an idea. You can bounce off of it as much as you want.
Right, for sure.
And you can get ideas through other pieces of work, so nothing bad with that.
Yeah.
I mean, all our research projects are basically copying sources.
Yeah, pretty much.
From like esteemed and established articles. So can you consider that unoriginal? In a sense, maybe.
But I mean, if we were to have original thought on this, like, we'd be scientists. So
we'll be inventors. We'll probably get a Nobel Prize of some sort.
Yeah.
Which we clearly are not. So.
Yeah. Well, speak for yourself.
Okay. I am clearly not that. Aleister can claim whatever he wants. He has his own original ideas. Just saying.
Not about AI.
Clearly.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts then on certain online communities banning AI art? Like, we're talking like anime fan art communities, for example. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's...
What is the premise? What is the argument that they make when they ban it?
I don't actually know. I just know that they only allow art that's made firsthand by artists.
I suppose I would need to know what basis they're banning it on and what their argument is. Is that they just want original human work with some kind of emotion in it? Or do they have, I don't know, disrespect towards the AI-generated art? Which I think it is a little lazy because you just need to write a prompt.
Right.
Which we already discussed can be very difficult if you want a very specific thing.
But it's
still,
not art.
You are not actually drawing it yourself.
Yeah.
And like no matter how hard the prompt is, it's still not making art. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, really sorry if you think that is art. It's not.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a worry that all these non-artists using AI to do this kind of work are going to like displace people who are already in the community as artists.
But also, I feel like if the argument is, let's say, they're buying or selling art,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would be inappropriate to use AI.
Absolutely.
Because if the whole community is based on someone creates art and sold somewhere in some way, shape, or form,
Right.
I can see that being a premise of banning the AI, because that's not your work. Again, the whole premise, it's not your work, thus you cannot claim it because you did not put your time against it, and it's not your talent.
Yeah, like if you take a commission and claim to go and create this from scratch.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Any person can make a prompt and create an AI-generated picture, but I mean, what to pay for then?
Right.
Unless you disclose that you are going to be using AI and someone is just too lazy to even do that, which I don't think I want to go into and create a prompt.
It takes a bit of work.
Still,
yeah,
it's not your original artwork.
Right.
Thus, you cannot claim it.
Yeah, you can't claim it's...
And sell it, because that's kind of unethical, I would say, in my mind.
Yeah, I would say it's disingenuous, bit of a scam in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the contract, the social contract, so to speak, would be that you're an artist pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into making this creative thing, pouring emotion into it. And if you're just typing like 5 lines into Photoshop's AI generator and hit and go, like, I don't know. I don't think that's worth whatever the commission price is.
Yeah, no matter how... I mean...
Unless, again, you disclose it and the person buying
and the person is
knows.
like, whatever, I just need this.
Yeah.
Then it's fine, I suppose. Just... Again, disclose. Honesty is the best policy.
Right.
In this case.
Yeah, I agree.
I just kind of put the...
Always be honest.
I agree in this... In this particular context, yes, honesty is the best policy. I don't think honesty is always good.
True. There's always exceptions to a rule.
But not this particular rule.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not when it comes to purchasing work of any kind.
Yeah.
You have to be... It needs to be clarified what you're getting for your money.
Yep. Transfer money, agreements.
No matter what money you're paying, whether it's like 2 cents or like $200. Doesn't matter. It needs to be disclosed.
Yeah, that's fair.
What was that? And if there are communities that do not sell art, I don't know. Again, I would need to know what the argument is to have any idea or an opinion on it.
Right, that's fair. I'm not really a part of most of those communities, so I couldn't tell you.
Neither am I, so I would not know.
Yeah, I just read what I read online. So.
I mean, it's an interesting discussion because it's always interesting why things are being banned, because I can see a merit in it, but I can also see how illogical it might be.
Right.
If they're banning it just for the sake of banning it, I don't understand why. I mean...
Yeah, is it a knee-jerk reaction just being like, ha, take that, AI?
Yeah,
artists?
Is it that? Like, then... I mean, why? If it's another artistic outlet that people choose to utilize, it's fine, I suppose. Again, but if it's for profit, then probably no.
Right.
But
if it's
just cause, I don't get it.
Yeah, if it's just, hey, look at this cool picture I prompted the AI to make. Like, I feel like you should be able to share that with people.
Yeah, sure. I would definitely look at it and maybe save it for my screensaver.
Right.
If I like it. I mean, for me, it doesn't matter how the art was created. I mean, unless I'm buying a piece of painting or going to an art gallery, I probably want to see the originals that were made by famous, esteemed artists and painters. But
if you're just on Reddit looking at pictures of insert anime character here,
couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Couldn't care less. Actually, I do prefer it being more professionally done than some amateur drawing.
In which case, the AI is almost the better option.
Yeah, I have nothing against amateurs who draw things. I'm just picky. If I choose to look at something, I want it to be professionally done.
Right. Yeah.
unless I am specifically reviewing amateur paintings or drawings.
Yep. It's the same way I look at it. Like, it's some things just like aren't pleasing to the eye. I respect the process. I respect that people are learning.
Yeah, and if
It's nothing wrong with sharing it. It's just it's not for me.
exactly, like, please do share your progress and how you like evolving in your process of becoming a better artist. Do I want to see it every single time? Probably not. If I'm googling a picture of, okay, let's stay on topic of anime characters. Anime character, I probably want to see it being really pretty because it's an anime character.
Yeah.
They're pretty. I want to see it pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't be able to draw myself a pretty character. That's why I value and go online and look for
Yeah.
prettiness and beauty there.
You're not Googling to see some stick figure on someone's notebook.
Yeah.
So.
No offense to beginner artists.
Right.
I don't think it should be offensive. I mean,
I feel like most people get it.
you would think common sense is common, but then every day we realize it's not so common.
This is true.
Again, it's not anything against any particular individual or you're against your skill. It's just that my preference is this. Other people preferences, the other thing. I'm not saying you cannot do it or someone will not enjoy it. I'm just saying that I don't enjoy it.
Right.
That's it. Nothing against you doing it.
Yeah.
Whoever you is.
The royal
Imaginary
you.
Remember, we speak for specifically for our own feelings and experiences. Whatever you feel and experience, we're not trying to discredit. Okay?
Absolutely.
So, like, whatever we talk about, opinions are our opinions and no one else's opinion. Not trying to, like...
Yep, don't mean any harm by anything.
No.
So.
No.
Just what we think.
Just what we think and what we feel. You don't have to agree with us. You don't have to like the same thing as we do. I mean, God, please, if you have other opinions, do tell us. I would love to know.
Yeah.
I don't know about Aleister, but I'm always willing to. I mean, please be respectful about it and do not laugh at anyone's opinion or beliefs. That's so rude.
Yeah.
And just disgraceful.
You definitely don't demean people just because they think differently than you.
Yeah, like, we all entitled to our own opinions and our own beliefs. Disclaimer, legal, consensual, and otherwise. Like, morally bound. But if you think, I don't know, red is the best color, you're absolutely right. For you, it is the best color.
Yep.
That is like the most basic example. I might think differently, but that's fine.
How dare you?
I know. Oh my God. No. My favorite color is pink and yellow. I like pink and yellow. Yours is purple.
Purple, specifically midnight purple, but that's getting very detailed. But yeah, I like purple. So.
You can hate those colors. That's fine.
No.
I'm not offended. Aleister is not offended. I'm pretty sure. Unless you're just going to be like crying over it.
Oh, I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight. Yep.
See what you did, guys? How? Why would you tell Aleister that purple is awful color? Midnight purple. Not yet. Please do not say that. But yeah, anything else there is interesting in artificial intelligence?
There's a lot.
Oh,
actually,
well.
it's such a large topic.
Okay, well.
So, I don't know. I wanted to talk a little bit about how AI is used to help those with like disabilities and whatnot.
Oh.
So, I don't have anything super specific on this, but I know AI is used to, say, take prosthetics. You'll have a prosthetic, say, you unfortunately had like this half of your arm chopped off. You still have nerve endings in this part of your arm that whenever you think about moving anything up here, the nerve signals still go down to those nerve endings. So they've been taking computer interfaces that read the electrical signals at these nerve endings, and they'll move limbs like far more naturally and stuff like that. So there's a lot going into helping people with various disabilities. So I know there's also like you can have brain implants that can be used to translate thoughts into speech.
Oh, I think you showed me that video clip.
Yeah. Did I? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you sent it to me on Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's already a realm of magic because I don't know how that works.
Right.
Probably electric impulses from nerve endings. That's how I would imagine, because nerve impulses in your body goes with electricity, like electric impulses. So I can see that affecting the prosthetic, because electric impulse is still electric impulse. Doesn't matter
Right.
where it goes through.
But language is a bit different, I feel like.
Yeah, that is magical to me. How, like, nerve endings make sense in a sense, because electric impulses sent from your brain down to your nerve ending. Isn't if the nerve ending connected to the correct part of the machine and it's interpreted the right way, it's gonna move the way your brain wants it to move.
Whereas the complexity of speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got people that are full paraplegic. They can't control any parts of their body, like
except
even their voice or vocal cords. But they're able to do, like, how Stephen Hawking could talk.
I was just gonna do the same example. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really positive thing that
By the
artificial
way,
intelligence has been used for.
Sorry to interrupt. If you ever are interested in anything about universe and magical universe of planets and astrophysics, Stephen Hawking is amazing. He writes it in a very simple language. I mean, he tries to deliver very complex subjects in a more accessible language, which not many people can do. I know I've read a couple of his books. And I want to say and give like a little disclaimer, just because he writes in simple terms does not make the concept any easier to understand.
Right.
I sometimes have to reread the same paragraph like a couple of times, because you cannot read it on a diagonal. You have to read and process every single word in the paragraph, in a sentence. Like, it might be simple, like simple words, but they form a very complex sentence.
Not like a fantasy novel where you can jump ahead and figure things out.
Yeah, no, you have to read but it's amazing read. It's as simple as you can get, given the
quantum
topic.
Physics is still quantum physics.
I mean, astrophysics and quantum physics and physics in general, any science is still science, no matter how easily you're trying to convey the ideas. So, but still good. It still great works. Highly recommend.
I'll have to pick up some of those. You'll have to recommend me one.
Brief History of Time.
Brief History of Time.
Yep, or Universe in a Nutshell, I think.
Huh.
That's a great one too.
Right on.
I mean, you cannot go wrong with any of his books. To
Right
be
on.
completely honest, anything you read is going to be amazing.
Huh. I'll have to look up some of them.
Yeah, I tried to listen to his presentation on YouTube. That was a little harder to comprehend, just because of the mechanical voice that was transmitting the...
Kind of drones on a little.
Yeah, it just because there was no emotional inflection, and it was a little bit robotic. Not a little bit, quite a lot actually. It was really hard to comprehend, especially like the whole idea of ideas in like the subject and how complex the study is. It's already really hard to understand if you're not paying attention, but then the voice kind of amplifies the complexity of it, especially the concentration that you need to be able to understand it. It was a bit too complex for me. I mean, I would have probably understood it better if it was in written form, because I could actually process and not concentrate so hard to distinguish what he was actually saying.
Right, that makes sense.
So it was just a little bit. I respect anyone who can listen to that and understand it. It means that you have much more in-depth knowledge than I do, because I am no physicist of any kind.
Neither am I.
So
someone could probably solve that with AI. They could feed his voice into one and have something come out that's a bit more natural sounding.
Yeah, that would be interesting to listen to. I think it would be a better way to deliver his speeches, which are so brilliant. I cannot even, go and explain enough how amazing he is too, and how well he delivers the thoughts.
Right. Yeah. Huh. I'll definitely have to order some of those.
Yeah. I can lend you. I have a book of History of Time in actual paper form.
I'd be down for that.
I'll bring it for you tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, the other prosthetics like that don't require nerve endings. Well, but technically, if you think about it, brain operates the same way. It's all
Right.
electromagnetic forces that like going through little neurons and
Yeah.
right. Am I?
For the most part. I mean, I know voice is just your vocal cords vibrating as wind
But
passes over them.
what I mean is that your brain sends signals of any kind through electric pulses.
Right. That's how
So
it
I can
operates.
see, I can a little bit, like slightly understand how the prosthetic of like think speech happened, because again, it's just electric pulses.
Right. They
But
probably study.
how complex it is,
Right.
I cannot even fathom.
Yeah. They
Who
probably
ever came
study
up
what
with
the
it?
signal looks like on millions of people.
Yeah, and it's probably quite similar. I would assume if they could come up with one device for multiple people, different people, then it should be cohesive enough
Right.
across the board.
Yeah, it would have to be, because I'm pretty sure there's probably a training period where it gets used to how your brain operates.
Probably, but just the fact that it can pick that up. So whoever created that piece of equipment and prosthetic is such a genius, and props to that person or group of people or a company who've done it, because I'm sure it's an effort of multiple people.
I'm sure, yeah.
Amazing work. Like, can you imagine how complex that is?
Yeah, and so kind to devote, like, who knows how long they spend doing it.
Yeah.
So that's a large commitment to make people's lives better.
Yeah. Mad respect to people like that. I think any decent human would want to help
Yeah,
in any way they can.
I would think so. I certainly would.
If they have knowledge and means to do something that would make other people's life better, I can see me doing that. I'm sure you would do that, and a lot of people would actually pitch in.
Absolutely.
If we, like,
I'd
so
like
many
to think
people.
what we're doing here does that in some way for someone. I mean,
Really?
obviously it's a drop in the bucket, but
I mean, one bucket will eventually make a pool, and pool eventually will make a lake, and lake will eventually make a sea.
exactly. Team effort.
Team effort.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes
You're
a
on the
dream
team.
work.
We're on the team. Everyone's on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything else that's fun?
Let's see. What else did I have down here?
My phone been buzzing.
Uh-oh. Someone's popular.
No, someone from work.
Oh, no.
I know.
I was just complaining about that earlier.
Oh no, it's nothing.
Tut.
Nothing for us. I don't know what that was all about. But I'll have to. Nothing directly directed at me specifically.
Right.
Nothing
yeah.
that I need to
That's
worry
fair.
about.
I don't know. I think we've probably covered a decent bit here.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I guess we could end it off with how do you think you interface with AI on a daily basis? Just as a little informative thought process.
How I personally?
Yeah, like if you had to think, do you interface with an AI on a daily basis?
I don't think so.
No?
No. I don't.
There's probably a lot of hidden ones that you interface with without even thinking about it. Like, do you use your GPS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do use my, okay.
And it
Yeah.
does traffic monitoring?
I actually do check my GPS before I go and come from work, because I want to make sure that I at least know how much time it will take me, and if there's traffic or an accident
Right.
that maybe I can avoid if it's not too troublesome to go around it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
All that traffic monitoring, definitely an AI.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
So-
so many things work to just get that down.
Yeah.
What else?
I mean, you search on Google,
Not every day.
I suppose, but
And we're
still.
talking about every day. GPS, yes, definitely daily. But
GPS, yes.
I suppose Google, yeah.
Yeah,
Any search engine for that matter.
right. Yeah, Google definitely has it, whether it's something specific that you're searching for, or if it's just the way they optimize the results you get. That's AI. Like, do you play video games?
No.
No, not much. But you have in the past.
Not video games, no.
No?
Never played video games.
Really?
PC games.
That's the same thing.
I only think video games are like joystick of some kind.
No.
Okay, I played Sims.
Mm-hmm.
And I played old games that were on CD.
Right.
I don't consider those to be...
Not video. I guess maybe they're not video games per se, but they're games.
Yeah, but I don't think they're AI.
So in the like super complex sense, not really, but in like the machine intelligence sense, they absolutely were. They're most
How?
likely most people's first interaction with AI, to be honest.
How would it be AI?
It's just a machine, you know.
I think I feel like a game that is not an open world is just written code that
Right.
just sends you back. So there's no real
I guess it's not intelligence.
I mean, it's interactive, but not in an intelligent way because all the outputs are already written.
Like that's kind of the
Is it
crux
too
of,
complex?
It's kind of the crux of the issue is that we don't really have anything that's considered intelligence yet.
Well, I would understand Google because it searches like such a broad base
Mm-hmm.
of whatever sources it has, where a game, and I'm talking about CD games. I'm not talking about online games yet because that's
That's
still, it's in a similar premise, it's just a little more open. It has a little more output than a CD game, which had beginning and end, and you could not go and move anywhere outside of that.
Right.
Like all of the routes, whatever game you play, I think the only artificial intelligence game I could probably come closer to would be Sims, because you have a pretty large variety of what you can do.
Fair.
But if we're talking about CD game in a traditional sense that had beginning and end, I personally would not consider it as artificial intelligence or machine intelligence. But then, because then we would have to consider every program and application that...
Right, that's fair.
Even like Word can be considered an artificial intelligence because it gives you some kind of outputs. Like it can correct you, autocorrect you. Would
Right.
that be considered artificial intelligence? Probably in a sense.
It's a basic form of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is the point I'm trying to get at is like the instruction sets have gotten larger and more complex over the years as we've developed these things.
I suppose autocorrect can be considered that, but games of back then, I don't think would be considered that because they would not do anything outside of their code.
That's fair.
They had already set in stone kind of things, and they would not go outside of them, no matter what you do.
Fair enough.
If you remember, like in older games, if like you have to act within this room, you would not be even able to interact with everything.
Right.
There will be like 4, 5, or however many objects of very limited number that you could interact with in a very specific way, and nothing outside of that way.
Right. It's acting within its parameters.
Yeah, so I don't think that's intelligent per se. It's just a very complex program.
Which is arguably the same as ChatGPT. It's just the complexity is much more vast.
But then ChatGPT still interacts with you.
It does.
In a more free way because you have a freedom of doing pretty much anything and everything with it. Where a pre-designed program with beginning and end cannot.
True. I suppose.
It's like if you write the code of, I don't know, do this calculation of these two numbers, and maybe you specify 3-digit numbers. It will not go outside of that code. You will not be able to write 5,365 plus or minus 7,000 or 15,000. It will not read the numbers because you put down 3 digits.
Right, it's outside of its parameters.
It's outside
That's
of
fair.
parameters, so it cannot act in a free range of what it's designed for.
Right.
I don't know. It's a complex issue. I don't consider that intelligence because it still needs to have some sort of base of freedom of interaction, like GPS, for example.
Right.
Ever so updating.
Yeah.
Google, ChatGPT, autocorrect, Word. It has. I think what it comes down to, access to internet. Games of that time did not have access to internet, thus it could not interact with you. in
That's
any
fair.
outside way, because it did not have any outside influence.
Right. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Where I feel like intelligence is what connected to internet, thus having access to broader
Mm-hmm.
broader sources of some kind.
Interesting.
Oh,
So,
what an idea. I didn't think about it until I started talking about it.
right. Fair
Because
enough.
if you think about it, we're so much online now. Like autocorrects, games, any programming application is all online.
Mm-hmm.
With few exceptions of simple games that can be played offline, but it can still be played online too.
Right.
That all of it would respond to somehow differently.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a very simple game.
Right.
Again.
That's fair. So I have a bit of a counter argument that's a very specific
Okay.
counter argument. So there's an old game called
Mhm.
Fear.
Mm-hmm.
It is a horror shooter game from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So this game had a very, very complex AI, I would
Mhm.
call it, for its enemies it presented you with,
Okay.
where they could all communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You would be your one sole character against all of these enemy combatants, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
and they would communicate. They would see you. You could break line of sight. They would remember where you were and go check there instead of just honing in on your location.
Mm-hmm.
If there was more than one of them, they would work together as a team. They would call out their location. They would call out when they saw you and swarm you, depending on where you were. So would that be considered an AI, do you think? Because that is reactive to the user. It's not interacting per se, but it's not just a set like in most games the simple AI enemies, they just know where you are all the time and they just run at you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is reacting to the environment and to your player character and changing how it actually approaches depending
But
on
you're still affecting the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're still playing the game.
True.
Thus you're acting within the script.
Fair enough.
I don't know, maybe it is an AI too, because it acts on your decisions. Like still within the parameters, but like very, very wide parameters. So maybe you can consider it intelligence
Right.
to a degree, because I mean, why I'm not so certain about games back in 2000s, early 2000s, because they did not have access to internet. Thus they did not have an outside source to supply them with more variations or much updates
Right.
of any kind, because again, how would you update a game if it doesn't have access to internet of any kind? You cannot connect it.
Right.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So the script will still be written for every particular situation.
They had a finite number of ways they could
Yeah.
interact. That's fair.
I mean, I'm not saying that games nowadays have infinite amount of ways that can interact, but like way more different, and patches and updates are always coming out with more and more. So I don't know, some people don't even have time to explore enough
Right.
to find that finite point
Yeah, I guess
of the game.
guess it kind of comes down to what you believe to be an artificial intelligence too.
Yeah,
Because again, there is no hard definition.
I
that
feel
I'm
like
aware
everyone needs to decide what the definition is for them.
of.
I
Mhm.
feel like for me, the most artificial intelligence is ChatGPT,
Right.
or any generated things that you can do is probably more artificial intelligence to me than anything else,
Mm-hmm.
because of how unique nature of it is.
Right. Fair enough. I guess that leaves us with the question for you guys, what you think artificial intelligence is, and try and think of where you interact with it on a daily basis.
Yep, and remember, be respectful, polite, and open-minded. We'll be there, and we'll talk to you later. Bye!
Bye.